Don't you hate pants?
Here's Brunette. Brunette's in. Andrew Brunette shot to score. Andrew Brunette in sudden death overtime. And Minnesota is moving on.
I won't need my high school diploma anymore. I am smart. I am smart. I am smart. I am smart. S-M-R-T. I mean S-M-A-R-T.
Played here by Danny Heatley, and out they come 2-on-1. This is Niederreiter holding on to it, and he scores! Niederreiter wins the series for the Minnesota Wild.
And welcome to another episode of the Giles and the Goalies podcast. This is our third in a week, and if you're a loyal listener, you are obviously very happy with our output here in the last week. But if you're me, you're just like, another podcast. All right. It was a special week. Obviously, there was a head coaching change. There was a stadium series weekend and whatnot, and so we had to accommodate the listeners, and they're out in droves apparently, as I've been told. People apparently like what we put out, so we have to give them what they want. And obviously, we're at a different locale this week, so maybe expanding our listening ship. I don't know if this call it.
This is the second time that we have podcasted from Tom Reid's, so this is not a new locale for us.
I was hoping the only time I'd be podcasting from Reid's is after the annual Jersey Expo. But,
this is. But this is. There was an event, just not here. Well, there was an event here. We did walk in to see the Minnesota Wild brass sitting in the corner sharing dinner. So,
in fairness, this is we are recording at 7:40 on Sunday evening, and when I walked in the bar at 7 o'clock, I looked over at the table on the far right, and there was assistant general manager Brent Flair, there was Tom Reid, there was interim head coach John Torchetti.
There's a lot of titles here.
Yeah, there was plenty of titles.
And I'm sure the other three guys
around.
were important too. I don't know who they were, but I just got a quick glance as I walked by.
Well, there was a lot of people hanging around the table. So,
yeah, I bet.
As imaginable. And I also, as I was kind of sitting there waiting for you to show up, there was some people who went up to Torch and asked for some photos, and he obliged.
Sure.
Being seems like a nice guy.
He's becoming a local celebrity now.
Yeah, he's 4-0, and actually got a text from a friend tonight asking me if I thought the coaching change was the best thing ever. But, I think we're going to get into that here.
Yeah, we can talk about it. Why not?
Since we last podcasted, which was on Thursday, actually
a whopping 3 days ago,
mid Edmonton game.
Sure.
As Mr. Reynolds was our special guest. Thanks to him again. The Wild did win that game. They swept through Western Canada, and then they came home today for the Stadium Series game, and they literally took a dump on the Chicago Blackhawks.
Yes, they did.
As our good friend Dan put it, in a more profane way.
Yes. Yeah, they pretty much mopped the floor with them. That was, we can get into it a lot more, obviously, but, man, what a weekend. When you envision this weekend happening, you had a good idea, like, this is going to be a good time, North Stars and the outdoor game, and, you weren't so much concerned about the outcome of the outdoor game, but just the fact that we were getting one, and, and for us, the jerseys and whatnot. Could this weekend have gone any better? Is there anything that could have improved on this? Aside from, Patrick Kane getting the Adam Banks treatment or something like that? I don't know.
No, not at all.
And not Jason Zucker getting the Adam Banks treatment, I suppose.
Oh, man. Sorry,
right.
I was distracted by some loud pedestrians.
I think that's a running gimmick now. You getting distracted in the podcast.
Well, I mean, I've had a fair amount of beer, so, but not nearly as much as our friend Dan, who would have been here recording with us tonight. But he was deemed far ineligible for this.
We have a legal limit on this podcast.
Yeah.
It's very, very high, and Dan still somehow managed to exceed it,
Yeah.
which is too bad because, as Dan has told us numerous times, Dan equals ratings.
Yeah.
And, we would have liked to have him on the podcast, especially inebriated, especially with you inebriated, but there's a point of no return, and damn, Daniel, you have reached the point of no return.
I didn't tell Dan I was planning on having him on the podcast. I just kind of
So
kept
he's
that
finding
in my
out now.
pocket.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, he's going to listen tomorrow as he's probably at the hungover state,
Scrubbing
and then he's
cat
just gonna
pee.
Be like,
Sorry,
but
Dan.
as I told you before, we went to the Buffalo Wild Wings across the street from the stadium after the game just to grab just a beer and
Sure.
just to wait out the light rail just so we didn't have to kind of wait in line and whatever. And when you're waiting in line for the bathroom, and somehow this kid got between me and Dan. And when every second word out of Dan's mouth is a profanity, and this kid's 10 years old, yeah,
It's time to go.
Dan was deemed not eligible for this podcast.
It's very famously put that I do not edit this podcast, not because of any kind of theory on the matter. I just don't, because I'm lazy and I haven't downloaded any free programs to edit because, again, I'm lazy. So, that's just kind of how it is. But it would have necessitated me getting said free program and me spending probably all night tomorrow night editing the podcast. So. Either have Dan on and release it a day late, or let Dan get his well-needed drunken sleep.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the latter, and then let people have their podcasts on Monday.
Sure.
But anyway, back to the matter at hand. I guess out of today's game, I just took away the Wild look insanely good against the Blackhawks in an outdoor game, which. You kind of look at experience in that regards, and it was clearly favoring the Blackhawks, but the Wild were the better team today from the from the start.
Yeah.
I should say. But
No, yeah, they were from the drop of the puck. I mean, I don't think there was a point in that game where you were like, oh man, if they don't play better, this could turn ugly. Certainly at first when it's still scoreless, when they're only up 1-0, you're like, it still could go either way. But the Wild were playing well at that time. Like I said, as they were the entire game. Like there wasn't a point in the game where you were concerned pretty much at all.
No.
At least given the play that was on the ice. So, wow, what a clinic they put on. I mean, they were winning. It seemed like every single board battle. They were forcing turnovers like crazy, and they didn't have a whole lot of careless turnovers, which was kind of a staple of this team slump. I mean, this team slumped because they were getting outpossessed at an absurd rate because of turnovers. So, it was just an absolute top-to-bottom amazing performance. Dubnyk came up strong a bunch of times. I mean, he didn't have to steal the show by any stretch, but he came up very strong a bunch of times, only allowed one, pretty nifty, kind of fluky, either way, goal from Patrick Kane of freaking course.
go figure.
Of course. But, all in all, amazing game. I'd have you DVR'd. Are you going to watch it on TV?
Much like yesterday's alumni game, I got halfway through the game, and I realized I forgot to set the DVR.
Yeah. Well,
So I got the condensed version of the alumni game this morning before I left.
Well,
for
better than nothing.
For the
You were
game
there,
today,
so
but,
whatever.
And I guess what I can get out of today's game is, I can go back in a couple days and watch it on NHL TV, and it won't matter.
Right.
But I think the Wild have a game in a couple days.
Tuesday and Thursday and Friday
I'm
this
trying
week.
to look up the schedule.
They face
on
the
fly,
Flyers
but-
at home on Tuesday, and then no, they host the Islanders. Sorry, host the Islanders at Philadelphia on Thursday, at Washington, as you well know, on Friday, and actually play on Sunday against Florida. So
what a
4 games
a
before the next time you hear
treacherous-
from us.
What a treacherous schedule.
Yeah, a
But,
little East Coast swing, which is never easy, especially when you have to face the Capitals in their own house.
I guess as I'm trying to get the damn app to load before I get in, but I guess kind of to a point here, I brought it up before the show, but I got a text from a friend who asked me, clearly the Wild made a great coaching change, and as we discussed on the last podcast with Brian, it was just kind of you kind of got to take the fact that they played 3 terrible teams in Western Canada into effect, and obviously those are winnable games, and they won each of them by a 5-2 or 5-3 margin,
Something like that.
So obviously they were sitting pretty coming into this game today, and I don't know how much you can take out of an outdoor game, because there's just a lot of random chance crap that can happen because it's just the elements and whatnot. But I guess what have you taken away from the first 4 games of the John Torchetti era, who's within 50 feet of
us right now? Yeah, luckily he's in a different part of the building.
Yeah, he can't hear this.
If he can hear
cool.
us,
Burger Mo's Wi-Fi.
he is clearly the best NHL coach of all time. Clearly, and Mike Yeo is clearly the worst NHL coach of all time. Are my takeaways. But no, seriously, I mean, it just flaming hot takes.
Don't you hate pants?
Wait for it. There we go. So anyway, no, I mean, as everyone has, you've heard the quotes from the players, and you've kind of read between the lines. And Jason Pominville after the game today said that, Torch gave them a lot of liberty on offense, and he himself broke out of obviously a very publicized slump, because he said he's not thinking out there. He's not thinking out there. He's just playing. And I mean, nobody has turned around more than Jason Pominville over the last 4 games. And I think it is just kind of, I wrote about this on Friday, how the team was mentally weak and how they changed. Their mindset completely changed when Yo was fired, and I think that is just the biggest part of it. It's just, this is how important attitude and effort and all of those things are to an NHL team. We know this team is good. We've seen it. We've beat it like a dead horse. Best team from break to break. And then lose 13 out of 14. So it's just, this is how important confidence is to a hockey player. And Jason Pominville is a huge benefactor of that right now. I mean, going across the new year, he had to be squeezing his stick into graphite dust on a nightly basis. That's just the reality of it. And the guy was pressing, and I've been there. I've played bar league sports, and I've pressed, and I was terrible at that. Like, I'm not a good athlete by any stretch of the imagination, but I press and I tried too hard, to impress people, and then I'll make a fool of myself, and it comes out even worse. And we've all been there in one form or another, whether it's sports or something else. But I mean, this team was pressing. This team was depressed. This team had the here we go again mentality, and as unfortunate as the Yo firing was, I mean, I think everyone, at least most people, are at least a little disappointed to see his tenure end like this. You can't deny the positive effects of just changing this team's mentality, and Torch, may have a reputation as a screamer, but I think he's just a fiery guy, and I think he's overall, screamers get a rap like being a wacko like Torchetti, or like Torts, sorry. But I think he's got a lot of positivity, and that's been a word that you've heard over and over again too, is positivity, and obviously that's rubbed off on their confidence, because I can't think of a time where I've seen this team more confident since the end of the regular season last year. That's just my. It's hard because you can't quantify any of that. And a lot of people are going to want to find something to quantify, but that's just how important confidence is in a fast and skilled game like hockey.
I don't know if Torch is a screamer or if he's a screamer.
Yeah, he's not a screamer. He's a screamer.
Yeah.
Screamer.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit it there with Pominville just playing with an insane amount of confidence, and as we saw today, he fired a shot from the slot that I literally just kind of dropped my jaw at when you could clearly tell that went in. It was just like, whoa, like you haven't seen that at all this year, and that summed it up for me, I guess. And
yeah,
and
we kind of, I want to say we defended the move when it happened, like kind of like, well, it was bound to happen,
right?
And if you're going to get anything out of this team, I think a coach like Torchetti, a fiery, emotional type guy, he was the right button to push. So, let's not go anointing Torchetti as the next Scotty Bowman just yet.
Right.
But I just think that for this team at this time, he was a perfect fit. Mike Yeo, at the end of his tenure, unfortunately, with this team, was kind of a round peg in a square hole. And that's he's going to fit in a round hole somewhere.
Right.
But it just wasn't working here now.
And as I've kind of told people the last couple of days, it just became blatantly obvious that just both coach and players just kind of gave up on each other, and there was just kind of a clear need to just make some kind of move to inject any kind of life in this team. And as much as I think highly of Mike Yeo, it's hard to disagree with the move at this point after kind of hearing everything that's come out.
Right.
Even though, as I said, I still think very highly of Mike Yeo.
Yeah, me too.
But
and look at the end of Jacques' tenure. Same thing. I mean, we're talking a Hall of Fame coach here, and a guy who obviously got the most out of the teams that he had. But at the end of his tenure, it wasn't as ceremonious as Mike was firing, where he just kind of walked off into the sunset. But it was time. And I think, I don't know if he said that specifically, but I think he did. I don't know the quotes exactly, but I think he did. I think he just said, it was time. It was time for him to move on. Time for the team to move on.
We thought, Jacques was done, but then he came back for, I don't know, a year, half a year, some ridiculous time with New Jersey.
Yeah. That was an interim thing.
Quickly,
yeah.
Took him out of retirement, and
that. I mean, I don't hold it against him like he bailed on us to go there. He didn't. He just came out of retirement to help out Lou, who is obviously a close friend of his.
Listening to Jacques Lemaire's post-game pressers was just I loved him. Like, you go to a game and I'd get in the car quick enough to listen to Jacques talk after the game, and that was just something, because he always had some weird thing to say. Like, the thing I'll always take away from Jacques' post-game pressers was after one of the only playoff game I went to during his tenure. I think it was in 2007 against the Ducks. Like, that was the game they won, the only game in that series, where somebody asked him, how about the players being fired up on the bench and whatnot, and he just replied with, the players, they stand up all the time, so I had to grab a couple phone books to see over them on the bench, and that was my favorite Jacques. I know there's a good YouTube video of Jacques Lemaire post game pressers, but that was my favorite moment.
You think he's the French Canadian version of Daryl Sutter? Daryl Sutter, not Sador.
There's a big difference. Yeah, probably. Jacques is probably the.
He's super dry.
Yeah, I love Jacques, but just purely in a post-game presser manner, or just for a quote.
Right.
But anything else is debatable. But
sure.
I guess, I don't know, I kind of have to take a leak, so we're probably going to keep this podcast still on the short side, since our last two have run far too long, and I don't think I have it in me to hold it that long.
Well, do you want to talk about the week ahead quick, and jerseys, and then we'll split?
We can look ahead to this week. I literally forgot the schedule you laid. I think I heard the Islanders.
Islanders here on Tuesday, and then Flyers, Caps, and Panthers on the road.
Panthers are Sunday at home.
Sunday. Yep.
Okay. These are tough Eastern Conference teams. Maybe with the exception of the Flyers, but they're just kind of a chippy team because they're coached by Dave Haxtell, who I hate with a burning passion. This obviously would have been the podcast to have a friend of the podcast, John Marthal, on, because he hates Dave Haxtell more than I do, which is a
kind of amazing.
thing. But
Point 6.
John did get in some hot water for his last appearance on the podcast, so I didn't deem it well enough to have him back on again anytime soon. Kind of got to let the cool off from
the sport of dust settle, if you will.
I didn't want to get John into any more hot water, but you go into the week and you just go. You got to keep winning. We're kind of where we are at this point last year, where you got to win most of your games.
You're basically looking at a very same scenario as last year, where it's a playoff game almost every night, and it feels like that, and it really is. I kind of actually like their chances against the Islanders at home on Tuesday. As well as they're playing right now. Islanders are good, but they're not. They're definitely a beatable team. And I think hosting them, coming off of such a huge game, hopefully there's no emotional hangover, I guess would be the only concern, that this team can just kind of breathe a little sigh of relief after beating the Blackhawks. But I think that's a winnable game. Obviously, in Philadelphia, you wanna win that one because the Flyers are kind of struggling, even though Shane Gallesphere is apparently the best defenseman since Bobby Orr.
He's really good. As much as I hate
good.
to admit it, and him playing for Union in a time when I didn't want Union to win anything was
And then you go to the Capitals, and that's going to be the tough one. Obviously, that's the linchpin of the week. It's a game that you're going to be in attendance, and
which is good for the Wild. They're 3-0 this year. When I am I'm 4-0.
Oh wow,
4-0.
Yeah,
when I've attended games this year. Yep.
Outstanding. So they're going to need all the help they can get because they are facing Alexander Ovechkin in his own barn. So that's a tough one. And then obviously the Florida Panthers are no walk in the park either. You got Jaromir Jagr at age 68 scoring 40 goals a season again, just like it's 1992 all over again. It's not going to be an easy road trip by any stretch. I mean, if the Flyers is your easiest game, then they're a tough pull right now, and that's the only game that you see that's the most winnable. So, but where this team is at, a couple points out, even with a couple of games in hand, you've really got to hope for at least 2 to 3 wins. 2 minimum. And hopefully maybe an overtime loss or win sprinkled in there. I don't think you're going to sweep this week. I just think it's too tough, especially in Washington. That's just a game that's a tough place to win and tough team to beat right now. Obviously, the President's Cup lined up for the President's Cup trophy right now, but you really got to get 2 wins. Really got to get 2 at least. Hopefully 3. I mean, in all actuality, you kind of have to get 3 wins, basically. Yeah. And if they're 3-point games, then that's fine because they're Eastern Conference teams. So who cares?
I mean, I guess to be fair, these are all Eastern Conference teams, and you're not really playing anyone. You're trying to fight for a playoff spot with, but as we sit here and record, the Wild are only a point out of a playoff spot. So
sure.
But like you said, you gotta pick up wins wherever you can get them at this point, and. You gotta. Damn it! I'm trying not to sigh. I'm really trying to go through a podcast where I don't sigh.
No, you don't. You don't have to. Don't avoid it. Just embrace it, Giles.
I'm trying to just make it through one. It needs to happen.
If you do, Tom is going to be so disappointed.
Well, there you go again. But I guess. 3 would obviously be the preferred number for this week, but if you can get 2 and an overtime loss, that would be good.
Yeah.
Considering they play the best team in the league this week, but hopefully they can snag a couple of points out of there since I'll be there. They got a little bit of luck on their side. Although if they don't, I'll just drink their bars dry. So,
Yeah, you'll send back a report on the Washington D.C. nightlife or lack thereof.
I'm actually really excited. We're going to go to a pizza place that highly touted, known for good pizza and
That's cool.
great craft beers. I love a good
Did you get a
craft
recommendation
beer.
from Charlie or no?
Actually, I've been DMing him this last week, and
Okay.
he's given me a few pointers.
He is the D.C. guy.
But most of the stuff I'm kind of picking up is coming up from just Google.
Sure,
So
sure.
I didn't want to pester Charlie a whole lot.
He's a busy guy.
But yeah.
Especially during tournament season. Anyway, on to the famous segment, if you will, the trademark before Giles pees himself. The Philadelphia Flyers, obviously Hackstall's Flyers are our team this week, and it's kind of an easy one because they're one of the teams that I think has done it right and has never ever changed their logo. Because they kind of have a good thing going.
No,
and,
the logo has been very constant. And
right.
It's a great constant.
And they did fall for the 90s black third jersey, and it even became their primary for a short period of time. But, I think given that their color scheme was already orange and black, I don't think that was even a bad thing either. And to their credit, I think their jerseys right now are, just as good as any set they've worn before. I'm a fan of their look. I mean, the nameplate's different color. I could see how that would rub people the wrong way. I kind of like it. I don't know.
I guess my first question, isn't their third jersey their Winter Classic jersey from a few years ago?
I do not know.
I think it is. I could be wrong, but I want to say it is. But and then I guess kind of more to their main home and road jerseys. I guess I kind of grew up with my grandfather in hockey and jersey takes, and he hated those. He hated the nameplates. He thought it was the most tacky thing. but as time has gone on here since the Flyers went back to it, I kind of don't mind it.
Yeah.
I think it's all right, and it's a good classic look. And for somebody who just watched the North Stars this last weekend and watched North Stars videos on YouTube to no end, a good classic look is all right with me. Considering the hot jerseys of the 90s we've had to deal with, and considering where jerseys in general are going now in the 2010s.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in their case, with the jersey, with the panels on the back, being that it's something that they historically did and they brought back, that makes me kind of like it a little bit more. Obviously, they went to the little bit more streamlined look in the 80s and 90s without the big nameplate boxes as a different color. But I like it because of that. I like it because it was something they did for a long time, and I'm a fan of them bringing that kind of stuff back. So. I do have a Flyers jersey in my repertoire. It's a blank one that I've had since I was in high school. I don't wear it very often because it's blank, but I wish like hell I had a John LeClair jersey or even an Eric Lindros jersey, even though I might get concussed just by putting it on. But
I think I still have an Eric Lindros poster at home from when I was a youth. But those jerseys. I guess they were what they were. I guess more to put it from the 90s.
Yeah. There wasn't anything too crazy about them.
And then, I don't know, I'm literally not looking at NHL numbers for a change because I'm not picking up Wi-Fi out here in the tent at Tom Reid, so I'm just kind of flying off memory. But, the Flyers, kind of like most teams, kind of had an Reebok Edge look to them when they switched over. And
yeah, they've been one of the teams, I think, that kind of tapered it down a little bit, though.
I think it was in
Which is
2009 when they made their Stanley Cup run. They had the throwbacks as their third jersey, which they kind of wore more prominently during the playoffs. And then I think that following season, they were just like, you know what, let's just make it a permanent fixture and switch altogether, and which is a good look for them, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The Flyers have just kind of... They've had their problems of their own as a team with spending
Chris Pronger says hello.
Ridiculous amounts of salary on defensemen who they just try to bury in the minors, and goaltending is a hot fiery mess. But
it did produce some amazing quotes from Ilya Bryzgalov. So I mean, that's the positive.
Flyers was peak Briz.
Yes, it was. That was the time of humongous big. That was the time of my Husky is like a hot chick. That was the time of all the universe talk. All the wonderful self-deprecating humor leading up to the Winter Classic. That was a good time for quotes in the Flyers locker room, I got to assume.
Yeah. That was a good stretch with with Briz. But and then I guess one last jersey take. I threw this out to you on Twitter last night, but White Bear Lake, more of a local thing. White Bear Lake, as I tweeted at you, they actually had a good black jersey, white lettering, orange trim, and whatnot.
Sure, very Flyers-like.
And then they had white shoulder pipes, which was just driving me up a tree.
Yeah.
I didn't say it was driving me up a tree, but it was driving me up a tree.
It does. I think with high schools, a lot of times you're dealing with a lot of kids, and kids want the Swiss Army knife of jerseys, I think, a lot. I think it takes some time and some experience to appreciate the simple is better kind of jersey look that we prefer at this point. But yeah, I'm sure the kids love the white shoulder piping. I mean, the Wild have it, all that stuff. So, you gonna make it, man?
We gotta pause for 2 minutes.
Okay.
All right, we're back. Yeah, we haven't ever needed a potty break on this podcast, so there's always a first.
Yeah,
I guess.
I don't know if you drank quite that much beer before a podcast before either, but it's been close,
no,
I guess.
I mean, I probably had more. I think that one time
when
I showed up and I complained about the Viking Stadium. I forget what podcast. I think that was like in June, but
yeah, something like that.
But, yeah, neat story. Just taking a leak in the trough there, and then Tom Reid just walks in, and so it just taking a leak next to Tom Reid. And that's all I got.
That's a way to cap off your weekend right there. That's history.
Please don't title this podcast "Taking a Leak Next to Tom Reid."
I don't have a whole lot of other options right now, Giles.
Please title it.
Think of something good. Better think of something good. Pressure's on.
Title it like Dan is too drunk or something. I don't know. I'll think of it.
Anyway, so yeah, we kind of closed up. You mentioned that White Bear
Lake. We were
Lake.
literally 2 minutes away from this podcast today, but I couldn't hold it anymore.
Yeah, like I said, with the White Bear hockey jerseys and the shoulder piping and whatnot, kids like snazzy things. They like exciting, and shoulder piping doesn't need to be there, but
we
it's
don't need
something,
shoulder piping.
It's something, and to kids, to high school kids, that's exciting.
And then I forget who replied to these tweets. Somebody on Twitter replied to us and said that White Bear Lake's warm-ups were all advertisements, which I can confirm were an actual thing.
Yeah, and he said that he watched a Forest Lake. I think it was Jarek, and he said he watched a Forest Lake White Bear game, and their warm-up. Both teams wore warm-up jerseys, which blew my mind to begin with, and the fact they were covering advertisements as well. It's like, yeah, I understand there's budget cuts, and obviously that's a creative way to work around that, but not that I'm like a whole, not that I'm like, not that I feel like it's super duper exploitation or anything, but it's just kind of like, why? Like, just, I mean, I budget cuts, yeah, I guess you're always looking to make that, to make that athletic program even out, because Lord knows they don't bring in a whole lot of money unless you're a football team in Texas, but I think
we're just kind of seeing that more with hockey in general and in high school, and we were at Aldrich Arena last night, and that's the home of Hill Murray, and they had a bunch of ads on the ice. And it looked more closely to something you'd see in the Finnish leagues or the Swedish leagues.
Gross.
But I think we're just going to see more and more of that just to make ends meet, because hockey is an expensive sport, and
very.
Sticks alone are ridiculous, and
I understand. It's kind of filed under the necessary evil kind of thing, but it doesn't mean that I can't be an old man and shake my fist at it. Damn it, that's my constitutional right.
Old man yells at cloud.
Exactly.
So I guess I guess we can kind of wrap it up here. Kind of a shorter podcast this
Sure.
week. Do you have any? I guess we'll kind of end the theme of 5-minute major. Just kind of. Do you have any final thoughts?
As far as this weekend, I'm actually going to write about it tonight. Really, I'm just, like I said early on, this weekend, I don't know how it could have gone any better. And one thing that I would like to briefly rant on, just for a second here, the game didn't sell out. And from what it sounds like, the NHL returned 4,000 tickets to the Wild midweek. And that's basically they were 2,000 tickets short of selling out. So what my question is how did that happen? It sounded like the Wild said they sold their allotment out, which was 25,000 tickets. The Blackhawks had 10,000. They sold that out.
Yep.
Totally understand that. You've got two very passionate hockey fan bases.
Yep.
But how does the NHL... if you do the math quick, the NHL only had 7,000 tickets, because the bank holds 52. So... Or 17. Either way. They screwed... I don't know how they screw that up. We watched them completely botch the John Scott situation, but it's like, how you're the NHL, give them away. I don't know how. And I get it. A lot of people around the country, if you're not buying it through the team, buying it through the NHL, going to Minneapolis in February probably isn't the most desirable vacation for you to see a hockey game not involving one of your favorite teams. I understand that, but it's unfortunately for Minnesota and Minnesota fans, it's going to be kind of a black eye, and we can bring
held
up
against us later.
Absolutely, and we can bring up the fact like, hey, well, the NHL screwed up and didn't sell their share of tickets, but that's going to be a complete asterisk or footnote to the fact that we're one of two games out of 17 outdoors that haven't sold out. I think it's really unfortunate because I think it was a really, I don't want to say magical, but it was a really amazing weekend for Minnesota. And it's unfortunately that's going to be a footnote to the game. And it really is sad. And I think the team's success leading up to this had a lot to do with that. Up until about, 5 days ago, there was no reason to go and watch this team, especially for the prices they were asking. And there's probably not 50,000 rabid Wild fans in the Twin Cities. So I understand them not selling those tickets because of the team, but I just, given what we were told about the numbers, it sounds like this is kind of on the NHL, and the team obviously didn't help, but how do you screw that up?
And then when you go back, say a couple years from now, you'll go back and you'll ask the NHL about it. This will totally be on the Wild. They will take no blame for this whatsoever.
Right.
So that's just kind of their thing.
Well, and also, not to say the bank is huge.
How they go.
It's not like failing to sell at the big house, which the Red Wings did, but the bank holds 52. Target Field only holds 42. So if they had it at Target Field, it would have been sold out. But that's not an excuse that anybody's going to accept, nor should they. They should have sold out this game, and I think. I don't know what the NHL did, but I think if it would have been handled a little bit better by the NHL and the team, a la a little bit lower freaking ticket prices, I think they would have, honestly.
What I think from what I read last August when this was announced was the reason this wasn't held at Target Field over the bank was because the NHL would have had to pay for the resodding of all the grass in the outfield that would have probably been, ruined from the ice and the platforms and whatnot. So there was obviously a lot more to cost in there. Although I think I read this last week, the NHL paid somewhere around $800,000 to the U of M for rent for these 2 days. But that's just a weird situation.
I wonder what that money if they're going to find a new AD.
Don't get me started on the athletic department. But I guess for I got two final thoughts. I guess first, for somebody, you and I both weirdly tweeted these at different times yesterday. which I didn't see because I was not capable of Twitter for some time,
Sure.
and then B, I was quickly going from A to B in terms of hockey games yesterday, but for somebody who never had any previous memories of the North Stars, yesterday for the alumni game was really cool just to have all these old North Stars out on the ice and playing. And as I told Dan, this is the only time we're ever going to go to a game and we're going to cheer for a team called the North Stars.
Yeah.
And as much as he kind of disagreed with that, he was like, well, you don't know about it. I was like, yeah. The North Stars are never coming back here as much as we'd all love that.
Yeah.
That's not happening.
Yeah, after the fact, same, like you said, we both tweeted the same thing where it was like, that was amazing, and neither of us ever considered ourselves North Star fans. What I took away from that was it just kind of made me sad, honestly. Like, it made me kind of depressed that I didn't get to be a part of that, and just feeling what I felt, I can't even imagine what an actual North Star fan felt on Saturday. And, sure, it was beautiful and it was fun and, an absolutely wonderful event, but there's got to be a tinge of sadness to that. I mean, of absolute heartbreak, of the reminder that team left town. And so, yeah, absolutely. I'm with you. We tweeted almost the exact same thing. That was an amazing event, and we're too young to remember a single North Stars game.
For my thoughts on Norm Green, I'll redirect you to my our last podcast, where I made it pretty abundantly clear what my thoughts on him were for the North Stars. But
yeah, we're back to PG this week, folks.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, for the foreseeable future, we'll be back to a PG rating. And then my last thoughts a little closer to home. My cousin, I guess he's more of a brother to me, but technically he's my cousin. Jeremy played his last game for Roseville last night against White Bear Lake. That's why I was firing off these hot jersey tweets at you. But it was kind of a sad end to what was a pretty great day with the alumni event and then whatnot. I've watched him play throughout the years, and I didn't share this on Twitter. I thought about it, but I was like, I don't know. I didn't, so I'm pretty good and liquored up right now, so I'll share it now. But as kids, there was me and him and two of his brothers. We kind of all played games, no matter what season it was, spring, summer, fall, or winter. We'd all go out in the backyard and play whatever sport was topical. And nobody ever played with more of a fiery passion to win than Jeremy did. So it was great watching him play hockey through all these years, and as I kind of wrote about him last month on Wild Extra, hopefully that will continue next year, as he was hoping to play hockey at I believe it was Gustavus.
Cool.
So hopefully that continues, but still kind of sad to see his high school career come to an end last night. So I'll kind of end it with that. But this week I'll be in DC. So if you want hot Twitter pictures or hot politics takes, I guess you can follow me on Twitter at Giles Farrell. I'll try on fire off some tweets during the Wild Capitals game, but
cool.
I won't make any promises.
Yeah. No, by all means. I mean, enjoy the game.
Because I kind of ran up my data the last couple of days because the bank is not a friend to Wi-Fi or cell towers. So
yeah,
I kind of had to make some sacrifices to get some hot tweets in there. And then Ben will be Ben will be here in the Twin Cities.
Yes.
You can find him on Twitter at Ben Remington. And
Yes.
if you want hot takes during all the games, follow the rest of the Wild Extra crew.
Mm-hmm.
Most notably at Wild Extra, and then
Yes.
you can probably find any of the rest of us through that account. So yeah, that'll wrap it up. So from the cold, desolate corner of the tent at Tom Reid's Hockey City Pub, this is episode
43.
43
Is there
of the
King?
Giles and the Goalies podcast. I'm trying to quick think of a Wild player who ever wore 43, but I can't off the top of my head.
Oof.
So
Good.
I don't think I will. So we will talk to you next week. Thanks.
Was, without a doubt, the worst episode ever.